Hi everyone, welcome to Rendering Teardown section. My name's Simon. Today we're gonna have a look at this really nice picture depicting a nice pavilion in a train station. So, first things first. Well, the overall image is, I really like it. Like, it's not supposed to be like a really photorealistic image, but still it has this kind of grain and like a collage-y idea that I really like, and I think is quite convincing. Still, there are some things that I think can be improved, even though we're not dealing with like we're more into some sort of a NPR idea. So first thing is going to be regarding composition. There's not much to say in the sense that like the overall image is working. It's just that I feel there might be another way of setting this scene. Basically, I don't know what's like the latitude you have in terms of freedom, like if you can change things or not, but basically I think the problem we have here is that there's three subjects in the image. We have the pavilion, we have the train, and we have the city skyline in the background. And the thing is, as you can see here, and like if we think of this as a diagram, is that they're all completely crammed in like the left, lower left of the image. And in terms of composition, this doesn't really quite do it for in terms of balance and things like that. So there might be a way of having something a little bit more balanced, where basically, like, the thing is, there's not a real hierarchy in the image, because this is the same size as this one, and this is a little in the middle, and it's not that big either, so there's something to do here. But beside that, it's still like an interesting image that we can improve and have quite fun with. So first thing is, well, second thing is going to be regarding the lighting. There's two, like, the main issue with the, it's quite complicated to light this sort of scene, because as you can see, we're in some sort of like, not a blizzard, but we have like a heavy fog over like a heavy winter sky. So there's no, like, it's more of a like a global illumination with a diffuse light more than a direct lighting. The thing is, as you can see here, well, not here, but we do, like, it's quite difficult to get the idea of where the light is coming from, and this is kind of a problem. Here, for example, you can see that this side is brighter than this side here. So this basically means that we have more an amount of light that is more important on this side of the image than on this side. The problem is, when you look at this train here, it's the opposite. This is brighter than this side, which is not, it's like, wow, it's the opposite of what we're having here. And when you look at the skyline in the background, it's the same as the train. Here, this is brighter, and here this is darker. So this means the light is coming this way, which is not what's happening for the pavilion. So this, something that you have to be careful with, is to always, like, it's especially more complicated when you're dealing with like an image with a lot of compositing, because obviously the light is not calculated, but you have to fake it. But you have to keep in mind that everything has to be consistent throughout the whole image. So every time you add something new, you have to make sure that the light is coming from the right side, not the right side, but like the right direction, and things like that. So this is one of the problems. The other thing is, like, you can see it's also depending on light, but you see here we have like a cast shadow, sorry, here, that we find here and here, so it does make sense. The problem is we don't find it for this guy, or maybe it's this one, but it's not as visible as this guy. And in the same way, this train here doesn't have a cast shadow, whereas we should be able to see it. In the same way, this guy, if the light is coming this way, we should be able to see something like some sort of cast shadow of these pillars here inside, and it's not the case. So it's kind of thing you have to have a look at. The other thing as well is the consistency of the snow in the image. You cannot, like, snow is a really highly reflective material, so it has to be quite bright. You cannot really have it dark like that. Even if it's even if it's in the shade, it's still quite reflective, and it has to be brighter than the overall image. Like, it has to be among the brightest material in the image, which is not the case here. We're supposed to have something more like that than something like that. So that's something. The other thing regarding snow as well is that here it's a little bit basically in the former image, if I turn this off, you can see it's like there's a really soft edge here, and obviously you cannot really have that for snow because it's not it's a quite solid and compact material. So what you want to have is something a little bit more defined and less feathered, and it has to happen for all your all these kind of things as well. You cannot really sort of feather them because it won't look really realistic. Same thing, like I was referring to these shadows before, but the thing is you cannot have hard shadows like that or sharp shadows like that with this kind of sky. The only way you could have this shadows would be from an artificial lighting coming, well, from somewhere. The thing is, these guys are here, so you could sort of have like this sort of a shadow like that, but not a shadow going this way. It's not like physically accurate. The other thing that I haven't thought of, but that I think is lacking a little here as well, but would be to, like, the glass material is not really legible, and it's kind of like it could be interesting to really have some sort of reflection somewhere. We can sort of see it, I think, here, but the thing is, I think it comes from the fact that there's nothing much to reflect. So the reflection is not really interesting in the sense that it's been calculated and nothing was reflected. Still, it would be interesting to recreate it even from scratch. You just have to create, well, we can actually do it pretty quickly just so that you get the idea, is that you use, say, this thing, because it's going to be quite the same, and you just get rid of this, and this, and you put it there, and you just use a layer mask and put it here, just so that you get the idea. Of course, you have to be way more accurate than I am right now, because otherwise it's not going to be interesting, of course. But like that. The idea here, so you can unlink this. The idea first is that you would have to recreate this thing here, of course. So, well, I'm not gonna, well, I can actually do it if I do this and then do that and then put it here. Yeah. Group this, copy, delete. There we go. Could be something like that. Anyway, that's really not the point of this image, but whatever, you get the idea. So you have that, and what you can do is set it to soft light, generally work quite well. And generally what you can do is, well, you see here we do have something that is a little bit more defined. The other thing you can do, if you're not happy with the reflection, is to duplicate it, set it to normal, and just play with the opacity, but still use it as an extra from the soft light. It's not like you can use different blend modes. Sometimes green work actually quite well, but it's really a matter of situation. But soft light tends to work quite well. Here you would have something like that, and as you can see, we start to get details while not losing the inside of the building. The other thing, so that's the idea. The other thing, I guess, that I think is a little bit problematic with the overall image is that we have something weird going on with the overall scale. As you can see, well, first thing is regarding, say, this guy. So this guy is leaning forward and he's behind this guy because they're sitting there, and he's actually bigger than this guy. And this guy is bigger than this guy. So basically, these two people are a little bit too small. And the same thing happened with this guy here, because as you can see, well, sort of see, is that it does look quite small, because this guy is supposed to fit basically in this cabin here, and he obviously can't. So I think this little train is a little bit too small. So I would, yeah, do something about it. And yeah, the same thing is like this guy. Well, basically there's a problem with the consistency of the scaling, and it happens as well with this thing, like the background here. It doesn't really matter with this city here because it's small, and basically you don't know how far it is, but still you understand that it's far. And well, also actually the problem is it's quite high. Oh, whatever, that's not a problem here. The thing is, here we do have something, well, a little bit weird, especially if we consider the footpath in the snow, sorry, because they look quite big compared to this kind of trees. So something that's the problem with compositing, is that you have to be careful with the scaling. What you can do is that when you're rendering it, just do an extra render with like a material override, and put like a lot of different cylinders or whatever shape you want that are sort of like a 1.8 meter, so that you get a scale of what's going on. Or the other way you can do it is to actually put your horizon line at a proper eye level, because this way you just have to set like this line here and put people at the same height more or less, and it'll always work, at least if you're on the same plane, because otherwise it's going to be more complicated. Final thing I'm going to talk about quickly, because time is running, guys, is the depth. It's just something I tried out a little, but I'm not even sure it's useful. The thing is, and it's where it comes, like, what is interesting with this kind of image is that you're not dealing with like a real, like the idea is not to make it realistic, so you can do whatever you want in a way, or like to a certain extent. The thing is, if we were to do something that looks real, there's something that we're not really, that it's not really convincing here, is that we have quite a bit of, like the depth is not legible. The problem comes from one simple idea, is that, well, this is okay. And the idea is that all the gray values are this, they're not the same, but they're almost the same. So what you can see here is that this guy here is almost the same as this guy. So in terms of depth, it doesn't look as if this is sitting way behind this pavilion here. And this is obviously the case because there's like at least a couple of kilometers between these 2 points. And the same happened with it's sort of okay here, like you can get the idea, but it's not consistent throughout the whole image. So what I would suggest is to, well, there's a lot of things that could be done, but it would first be increasing the levels in what is in the foreground. Obviously, since you're dealing with an overcast climate, or an overcast weather, sorry, and like this sort of fog, you can have like too much of a contrast. But since here we're really in the foreground, you can still make quite a difference. And the other thing that I was playing around with afterwards is to do this just redo the fog, so, and make it a little bit, like enhance it at some point and make it a little bit less intense at others. If I get rid of this, so it's really a matter of like, logically, if we wanted to look a little bit more real, we would be dealing with something like that, because since the city is sitting way like further than we are, it has to be in the fog and has to be like almost unnoticeable. So, but in terms of composition, it becomes a little bit less interesting, of course. That's something you have to deal with and that you have to balance. So just a little reminder of how to do fog in a like post-production way. Well, the way I do it is quite straightforward. You use you pick with the eyedropper, like a sort of neutral color in your sky, basically, and you just paint over the whole image. The second thing you do that I think adds a little bit of depth is to take a darker shade and just paint so this one is set to like the darker shade, and paint on the outside of the image. So it's some sort of vignetting, but not exactly, and just set it to soft light. So the effect is really like almost unnoticeable, but still. And then you can use a white brush and just paint over it again. The thing is, afterwards, you have to group all that things, and well, you get there in the end. And what you want to do is just paint over, like, basically in this thing you would use usually a Z depth pass, and you would tweak it, because obviously it cannot work at first because you need a little bit of adjustment. But the idea here is to paint in black, like in sort of pure black, what is happening right in front of you, and then increase the white amount in the pass as you're getting further. So it's easier to have a base with that, but doing it by hand is sort of okay, especially if you have the layers, like you can select them one by one. So as you can see, it does make quite a difference. I'm not saying it's better or not, it's just that in terms of hierarchy, it sort of makes the building stand up more, whereas what we had before, and that's what was kind of a problem for me, is that everything was the same value, so there was no hierarchy here. So here you can see we're sort of refocusing the image. What I could actually do here as well is to make this part of the train sort of disappear a little, so that you understand it's going that way and it's going away. So yeah, we're almost at 20 minutes, so I'm gonna stop there. Hopefully you've learned some interesting tips, guys, and I'll see you in the next teardown. Thank you, bye.
And you